I wrote down Lady Whistletown is low-key an internet troll. Hi YouTube friends, it's Trish here and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Apparently this is becoming a Bridgerton stan account. That's okay. For now. No, love Bridgerton, and the show has been going interestingly. I'm here to chat more now that I've watched it, the first part, a couple times, had some thoughts, wrote them down, and wanted to just go through them. But yeah, no, this channel, it's just funny the progression that it's had. But anyway, I once, well, I mean, glitching, hold on. I really do love living under the flight path actually, because again, I love planes and seeing them fly overhead. It will never cease to feel like magic to me, but it is not conducive if you're trying to film for your channel. So anyway, while we have some silence except for the birds outside, which sing on, my dears, but Bridgerton season 3 part 1, initial thoughts, or like not initial thoughts, just quick thoughts, I suppose, maybe. Overall, I do like it. I think I like it a little better now that I have had time to marinate in it and really process, and with watching it again to take these notes, also picking up on a few little things that maybe will explain certain concerns that I had earlier on in my first viewing of watching it. It was actually the same for season 2 as well, which season 2 with the whole like older sibling, younger sibling dynamic with the same guy, that was weird. It was weird for me to really comprehend, but the more I watched it, the more I was just sort of like, oh, okay, they were denying that they had feelings because they were so focused on their duty of being the responsible elder sibling of the group. Got it. So it, with more watches, became a story that I really enjoyed. I suppose let's get into it, because there are still some things that frustrate me to no end about this season, and I am coming from it as just a viewer and fan of the show. I have not read the books, so I don't know anything about the storylines, and I would appreciate it if there are no spoilers, so thank you very much in advance. But just from a show perspective, and I guess how the storyline goes, or how certain characters are written, or comparing them to previous seasons, which I get. I mean, we're having a continuous growth and their story is evolving still, even if they aren't the focus of the season. So I want to make some allowances for those sorts of things, but there are other aspects where I'm just like, I don't understand where we're going with this. And since we have seen half of the season already, I don't understand where we're going with this. And I guess one of the main things is my dynamic duo of siblings. So let us start with Eloise and Benedict Bridgerton. Who do I want to start with? Both make me so frustrated for different reasons. So with Eloise, she's so sad this season so far. Just seems so miserable. And I see certain scenes where maybe it's a little bit more lightheaded or a little bit of her sarcasm comes out. Like when they arrived at one of the balls and her mom was like, "Oh, maybe you should expand your circle of friends outside of just Cressida. Like, get to know some of the other ladies." And right on cue, some other ladies pop up and they're just like, "Hey, want to take a turn around the room?" And she's like, "I do love a turn." So you see these glimmers and these moments of, yes, this is the Eloise that I know, but I feel like so often there's also so many scenes where it just feels like uh, she's a regular fish out of water. And at least before, she had Penelope next to her, or even Benedict, because especially in the last season, but since really season one, they really kind of related to each other in that aspect that they don't really conform to what society expects of them. And I was wanting to see a continuation of that, especially since it was there from season one. And they hardly have any scenes together this season. It's more of her and Colin, which works out too because Penelope was her best friend, and now Colin is really hanging out more so with Penelope and helping her out in this whole situation. So, like, of course, she would have more scenes with Colin, but in this season, you just see her as resigned to being a part of the society, I guess, as well as she can be, but she just really has no interest. And it's sad to see her so sad. And I did see the trailer for the next half of the season, and of course, like, she's just gonna be consumed with, Pen, you can't just marry Colin. He doesn't know that you're Lady Whistledown. So how can he really, which, fair. That's a fair point. Like, how can he actually love you fully if he does not know you fully? And so now it just seems like she's going to be frustrated and angry, and Cressida's going to try to find out who Lady Whistledown is. Everyone is. And it's similarly with Benedict. I hate what they're doing with Benedict's character so far this season. It just, there's no mention whatsoever of art being brought up at all. And so something again that was so prevalent in season 1 and in season 2, and like this continuation of this growing interest and then really practicing and then going to school for it. And yes, then at the end of last season, he's finding out that Anthony gave a big donation, and so that's how he essentially got into the school. And I understand that, like, at the end of last season, he's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna drop it because clearly I'm not meant to be there." But there's no real mention of it at all this season, and I would think that by now, because again, we are halfway through the season, I would think that by now there would be some sort of inkling of either missing it or someone being like, "Hey, like, I don't see you sketching anymore," or I don't know, are they completely dropping the art thing, which was such a big part of Benedict for 2 seasons? And so instead, he's met this widow, and I will say, like, it was kind of nice to see that he was interested in pursuing her without knowing that she was a widow. So to him, because she's older than him, so to him, he must have just been thinking that she's an elder spinster that he's just never come across before or something like that. So in that sense, it's like, oh, nice, Benedict. Like, really giving everyone, just meeting people for who they are and wanting to get to know them. And that is a lovely thing. And that is very on brand for Benedict. In the beginning stages, I was like, okay, interesting. And when we get to know a little bit more about her, and we find out that she's a widow, and like there's a little bit of depth over there, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes. But then where it ends up going, I feel like most of their scenes are comedic relief or montage inserts. And on top of that, like, that's towards the end, right, with him and Lady Tilly, right? um but before that, For some reason now Benedict is so frustrated and annoyed with having to go to balls. Like that was never really a thing. I mean, I suppose he didn't really care for them because him and Eloise seemed to, again, sort of bond over and that sort of thing, but now it's even more so pronounced, and he's like running away from people, and I don't know what they're doing with his character, and he doesn't seem like the Benedict that we've known up until now. Except for like his flirtatious ways with Lady Tilly. So at least there's that, because otherwise it's like everything about him just is strangely different. Wanted to see if there was anything I missed. They had one moment of showing Eloise, I guess, sort of bonding with the other ladies. She was just talking out loud about her mishaps, I guess, in certain situations, and everyone was finding her so funny, and they were like, oh, well, I think we found your talent. Like, you have a talent for talking, I suppose. And in that moment, I was like, oh, is Eloise gonna be like the first stand-up comedian or something like that? So I wonder if they will bring that forward and continue it on a little bit. I mean, in season 2, she had that moment with Queen Charlotte that I love so much, because she's like, oh, this ball, very diamondy, though I'm much more of an emerald person myself. And she always does this like sort of head movement thing where she's just like, shouldn't have said that, which is always so great. But she made the queen laugh, and so she has this knack for delivering her truth in such a way that it just is funny. So I don't know, I love seeing her in that sort of light, and it's so sad to see her just so down in her dumps for most of it. So I think that was most of what I had to say about Eloise and Benedict. I'm sad. Just sad about both of them. So let's move on. Someone else is doing garden work. I don't know if you can hear that though. It sounds loud to me. I suppose let's move on to Penn and Colin. Because there's quite a bit over there. Quite a lot. Oh my god. What do I do? I guess I should not put the leave-in conditioner so close to my roots, because it gives a weird texture to my hair. Guys. Oh! I have this little manicured field that's right across the street from our rental. And earlier I think they were mowing it, and now it seems like they had just taken maybe a break and came back to do leaf blowers. And now I truly do not know what to do. Okay, they're further down the street. I would just pause and do this later on, but it's Tuesday. The next season drops in literally 2 days, and I am hoping to be able to film and edit this and upload by tonight. Okay, they're further down. I think we can, yeah. Let's just go. I feel like it's gonna be a funny statement, because I want to say I feel like there's not enough scenes with Penn and Colin together. Which is funny because there are a lot of scenes of Penn and Colin together. Clearly, the whole premise of this first half is he's trying to help her find a husband. So he's teaching her how to charm. Um and I've talked about my thoughts on that, so I'm not going to delve into that. But they aren't having scenes together that much where you're really seeing Colin fall for Penelope. I know that it's happening because there are quite a few scenes in the middle, like after the kiss happens, because of course that's what sparks everything. But after that kiss happens, you then start to notice that it seems like he's processing. So there are many a scene where he's sort of just like looking longingly confused. So, like, I suppose that's just supposed to build on the notion that he is. So for me, it feels like. Why? Oh my god. So, what was I talking about? Oh, right. So, like, they have this kiss in it, and you start to see him sort of longingly, confusedly just look at her sometimes. So, from my point of view, that's coming off as, oh my goodness, I'm now seeing her in a different light, which is what I came into the season sort of thinking was going to happen was, oh, he's going to be helping her find this man and suddenly see her as a woman because she's doing more womanly type things, which she might have been doing beforehand, but he wasn't noticing or clocking that because she's my friend, Penelope. That's all she is. And so now it's like, oh, you are a woman. Quite a pretty woman. Like, that's what it's coming off as. And I feel like had they had a couple more scenes together where they talked more with each other, because they have had this very long friendship. So, like, I don't know. I don't see the progression of Colin liking Penelope. And I would like to, because we know that Penn has loved him for ages. So that would be nice to see. All we see is him sort of, again, being confused. And then he asks his mom that question, but then he sort of backtracks on it the very next day. And so seemingly just doesn't want to address or care about it. I don't know. Until he's sitting with his bros and they're being gross and he's just like, why do we do this? So, and then he's finds out that she's about to be proposed to, so now it's really pushing the pedal to the metal sort of situation, and he's forced to then think through these very few recent scenes that have happened. And I almost wish that if you're going to do it that way and show like a montage of certain interactions that they've had where now he's like realizing that no, I really like her and I don't want her to be married to someone else, then I kind of wish that they had popped in some scenes from season 1 and season 2. So we could have at least seen that there was this growing interest from his side. Because it's not like they didn't have certain scenes in those seasons where he kind of stood there and looked at her for a little bit. I wish I had the time to pick up those scenes to show you, but there were a couple of scenes in season 1 and season 2 where he had a prolonged stare with her. So essentially sort of hinting that there was an interest. And so anyway, in that montage of scenes leading up to him sort of deciding, no, I gotta get ready and go to this ball and stop her. I wish that some of those scenes were also sprinkled in, because I don't know. I just, meh. Since we're talking about Colin, I'm just going to go on with Colin for a little bit and then I'll go to Penelope. This whole, like, playboy charmer characteristic thing that's going on was so mind-boggling to watch, because I think I said it in one of my reactions. It's like, up until now, he's been such a gentleman, and to the point where he likes to toe the line. Like, when he was in that room with Marina and they were about to kiss, he takes a step back and he's like, can't do that, you're a lady, and that would be improper. You see him quite buttoned up, essentially, and always wanting to be polite and a gentleman. So I don't even know how he became friends with these guys, but that's stupid and just whatever. But what are we talking about? Ah, yeah, him being a playboy. It just, like, it's really seemingly coming out of nowhere. And sure, he's talking to Penelope about it early on, where he's like, oh, I was in all these different cities and you could totally reinvent yourself, which, yes, very true, because those people don't know you, but this society does. So it is a little strange that he comes and he's like this completely different person, and he is immediately accepted as just being that way, which I get why it frustrates Penelope in the beginning, but it just, it kept going and it was just so strange. Like, okay, so him, like Anthony, has had physical relations with women of the night, I suppose. I don't know how far YouTube will let me talk about certain things, so I'm just gonna try to cover my bases. So yeah, he is he's going out and doing this, which he's a man in that time and he can do that, cool. But in every situation, we're seeing him in a threesome situation, which, all power to that dynamic. Looks like a lot of fun. But sorry, it's just, I always giggle like a stupid little schoolgirl talking about sex, and it's really ridiculous. But anyway, my point is, I just find it so interesting that we do always see him in these threesome situations. It's almost like he's just too scared for it to be a one-on-one situation, for fear of really connecting with someone, because at least in this way it's divided, we're a group, we're having fun, as opposed to, like, if there's just one other person, then that would feel more intimate, you know? And I wonder if that's the reason why we are seeing him in these threesome situations, and why he's just fluttering around and flirting with all the ladies, because it's just, it's easier that way. It could just be a fun experience as opposed to something that could be more serious and sincere, I suppose. But yeah, just something that was interesting. I think that was it on Colin. No, it was not it on Colin. Oh my god. Okay, so another reason why it's really hard to believe his sincere feelings in Penelope is how he ends up telling her, like confessing to her, that he has feelings. It was very, maybe this is because I am a romance girly, that I feel like if you're going to confess your feelings, I want you to be so sure and confident and excited and happy to be declaring that to me, you know? And that this was anything but that. Did I end up enjoying it? Yes, because it ended up going in a certain way, and of course, like, Pen is so happy and you're happy for her because this is the man that she's loved for a really long time, and like, hopefully they are now loving each other, but that's also another thing where it's like, okay, but you've also just been idolizing him this whole time. So do you even know who Colin is, let alone does Colin even know who you are? So that's a whole thing. But they're in this carriage and she's telling him that there's a plane going on. Okay, it's basically a way. So they're in the carriage and Penelope is telling him that no, Lord Dublin didn't propose because he thinks that you have feelings for me, which is such a preposterous idea, which is sort of like, no, he said that you have feelings for him. Not that he has feelings for you, but that, okay, we're gonna let that slide, Pen. But he brings it up now in such a, how do I want to say this? I feel like when I was first watching the show, my first watching felt like they were kids still. And I know that it's been some years and they aren't kids. And so we should be viewing them as the leads of the show. But there was something still, so because we've seen them since season one, it was hard to shake that, okay, we're looking at like real adults getting married. And I don't want to say kids in the sense like they felt like they were teenagers, no, but there was something still so like young about them. And it didn't help that it was in this situation that they're in the carriage and she's like, he thought that you have feelings for me and that's why he didn't propose. And he's like, well, what if I did have feelings for you? And you're just like, that's how you're gonna tell her? So he, says that, what if I did have feelings for you? And then goes into, I've spent so long trying to feel less. And this sort of harkens back to Pride and Prejudice with Elizabeth Bennet being frustrated at Mr. Darcy because he's like, I thought of how, like, why? Can I just get my thoughts out? This is the problem, is a plane goes on overhead, so I feel like I can't really talk because that thing is so loud, at least to me, you know? And so I feel like I have to pause, but it really is frustrating because I'm usually getting into making a point, which takes me a while to rev up to. So in Pride and Prejudice, when Elizabeth is, points out that you chose to tell me that you loved me against your better judgment, it is just sort of like, you tried to feel less? Why? At least Darcy over there had kind of reasons, he's just like, we come from different places and blah 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 and all of this kind of stuff, but I'm willing to put that all aside, which, yeah, still kind of sounds like, dude, what? But over here especially, this just doesn't feel like, how Anthony had confessed his feelings to Kate, or how Simon ends up confessing his feelings to Daphne. Like, those were very much declarations of, like, immense love that they had for this person that they just did not know what to do about. And this felt like a shadow of what those two examples were. And I can't put my finger on, is it because it's Colin and he's like, for some reason Colin and Penelope still kind of feel young to me, but then like Daphne was young essentially in the way that the show is written, because it was her first season out that she ended up with Simon, and it didn't have that feeling over there. There was, and I feel like it's more geared towards Colin and less so Penelope. And yeah, it's just this whole like, well, what if I did have feelings for you? And I've been trying for so long to feel less. And you're just like, but why? Like, I don't know. And then when she says, Colin, but we're friends, he takes that as a rejection. And so he's just like, he has a moment of being like, yeah, but, and then she's still sort of frozen in shock. And so he's like, forgive me, I do not know what I was thinking about. And it's like, so do you love her or not? Like, it's very easy for him to just back away rather than like have like a steel pole within him that's like, no, I love you. Am I making any sense? In my mind it does make sense. I just don't know if I'm very clearly or in any way nicely just getting my point across, that it I wish it was more so a declaration that had a strong foundation where he was like, I love you, as opposed to this kind of shaky, wishy-washy, and then him just being like, okay, forgive me. It's like, no, forgive what? Like, this is your feelings that you are expressing to someone. And with something dealing like love, that should be openly and soundly spoken about. This is why I'm single. This is why I'm single, and I will be single for the rest of eternity. It's okay. Okay, now let's move past Colin, because like outside of that, he was great this season. I everything was good. I just, those few things, I'm just like, Colin. So Penelope had certain lines where you could tell that it wasn't just that she missed Eloise, which is a lot. She misses Eloise, but she also just misses the Bridgerton family and being kind of part of the Bridgerton family and very accepted by the Bridgerton family. And I maybe wish that we saw a little bit more of an inkling about that. So Penn has a couple of lines that hint at that. And I do like that they had that scene with her and Francesca at the first ball by the tea, iced tea, wine, port. It wasn't lemonade. I don't know what it was. Anyway, where they were sort of by the drinks and Francesca sort of scooched over and was like, hey, Penelope. So at least they had that scene, which sort of showed that there was a closeness with the other siblings as well. Hyacinth, after it comes out in Lady Whistledown, tells Colin that, she likes that he helped her out and stuff, because they like Penelope. I think that's the point I'm getting at, is they do. I kind of wish it was a little bit more openly so. There wasn't even a scene where Violet was asking Eloise about, hey, you don't go over and hang out with Penelope anymore. Like, what happened between you two? We see Colin ask this a few times, but no one else really does. And I just feel like since Eloise and Penelope have been like this for so long, you would think that you would see someone else asking what happened. And no one does. I wrote that Lady Whistledown is low-key an internet troll. So, like, I think because... So Penelope, her sassy, sort of vindictive and bully-esque tendencies come out through Lady Whistledown. It's how she gets her innermost judgmenty-ish thoughts out there. And so when she initially makes this change in her wardrobe and her hair, and she goes to this first ball, and at first she is being noticed by these men and it's going kind of well, but she has no experience whatsoever in that sort of realm, and so it starts to become really awkward. And then the moment she is having a decent conversation with Lord Debling, which I love, by the way, I love Lord Debling. I think I'm so, side note, really glad that they wrote his character the way they did. He was a nice guy and a true gentleman and showed genuine interest in her. And sure, like, he wasn't sure if it was going to be leading to love, but he was very open and frank and like in stating that and just being like, frankly, like, my work is takes up so much of my heart, I don't know, but that's why, like, I'm looking for a partner who is so complete in herself. Like, we are two individuals that are complete within our own selves, and we enjoy each other's company, and maybe it could grow into something, it could maybe not, but at least there's that foundation. And I just thought that, like, he was great. I loved him. So anyway, he's like showing this interest and kind of low-key flirting with her, which startles her for a bit. And then Cressida, I'm about to get into Cressida. So Cressida like steps on her dress, and that jolts her, and she ends up leaving. And Colin, of course, comes in that moment, and she has her chance to just be like, I heard you last season, what you said, I embarrass you, you know, I'm used to people treating me as such, but I just never expected it from you. So like, it was a good moment for her. But then she like goes home and writes this thing because she's so in her feelings, and she's so angry and frustrated and upset because she has gone and made this change hoping to be accepted in society, and nothing did change for her. Yet Colin does this whole personality change. Like, it's not even just his outward appearance, he's kind of completely a different person, and comes back, and he's so welcomed and accepted. So I get the frustrations, I said this earlier, but her to like go and write about that and just like, what did she say? Hold on. Like, is this new character the real him or simply a ploy for attention? Just like, damn. Okay, Penelope. But yeah, kind of harkens back to the whole threesome thing a little bit as well. Like, it did feel a little bit like he was not pompous, but like peacocking, I guess, is what I was getting at. Like, very, yeah. And it just is so strange because he's just not, hasn't been like that. So anyway, I get what she's saying, but oof. Oh, this is just also kind of a side note. There are so many scenes of her coming and throwing herself onto her bed in anguish or annoyance or embarrassment, any of the any and all of the above. The one time I think would have been enough. I mean, she, like, Nicola acted all of those wonderfully. It just, there were so many of those scenes, and I was like, okay, that's screen time that could have gone to something else. We don't have to see this every single time. Like, I don't know. That's just a side note. It's a little thing. That might have been most of what I had about Penelope. For the most part, I liked Penelope's sort of arc and how she's been going about things. I mean, Colin doesn't know that she's Lady Whistledown, but that's, you know, for the second part's drama. Oh, a small thing. I'm just gonna squeeze it in over here. Madame Delacroix. In season 2, they made such a point of Penelope and her running into each other in the market, her realizing that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, and then teaming up because of that. So now Penelope has a more safer planned route to get her scandal sheet out there to be published. Like, they set this all up in season 2 so well when Eloise was in the pickle with the queen, and now Penelope's like, oh crap, like, how do I protect my friend but also protect my identity as Lady Whistledown, she goes to Madame Delacroix and they have a moment, they drink, they think this over and mull it over, and Madame Delacroix actually gives her the idea to maybe you should write something bad about Eloise. So they had such a good working friendship that was building, and that just disappeared. Like, we get one scene at the very beginning saying, oh, business is thriving for you and for you as well. That's it. That's all. That's there's no more scenes with her and Madame Delacroix. Like, I don't know, just becoming friends. I just thought that was something that maybe would have happened, especially since Penelope seems so alone this season, except for Colin. Would have been nice to have a girlfriend, I think. We get one scene with Madame Delacroix and Alice, well, two scenes actually, about her sort of updating Alice's wardrobe now that she is Lady Kent. And again, over there, you would think that maybe they would strike up a friendship. I mean, maybe in the second part, I guess, we'll see. But, she's just mostly disappeared, which is sad. I feel like she was a big part in the first season. She was a big part in the second season. I feel like she's not as big a part in this season. So, pooey. Let's see. Francesca. Let's go on to Francesca. I feel that in my recaps, I've already given an initial sort of overview of my feelings on Francesca. I love her. I think she's so sweet and cute. I love that she is very open about how she feels. It's not that she really says anything specifically, even. It's just like, when she's happy, when she's uncomfortable, when she's like bashful, I mean, it's just, I feel like she's so open with her emotions, and I really enjoy seeing that. So this isn't really a note on Francesca. This is more so a note on, so maybe I should also include the elders in this generation, in this thought process. Watching Francesca go through her first ball and having to deal with these men coming onto her suddenly and trying to steer conversations in a more, what's coming off to me as more passionate, sensual undertones. But what she told Penelope as being like finding out how, like, this interview process to get to know what makes her tick. It really, watching Francesca this season so far has really put under a microscope what Daphne was so upset at Violet for in season 1, when she finally does find out how a baby is made. And it really amped up my frustrations, because you're watching this girl who, Francesca, I mean, who is a bit on the timid side. Like, she can hold her own in a conversation with people. It's not that. It's the energy coming at her is so much that she, like, sort of folds in on herself in these sort of situations. And then, like, she's asked to dance, and in that day and age, I guess you can't refuse a dance unless you already have someone lined up. Like, so she can't even say no, she has to. And it just really, really, really put into perspective that these girls are raised with only, like, the only male interaction is family up until they come out, and suddenly they are thrust into men's arms to do a dance. Like, not even knowing about sex. And all of these men, for the most part, do. And they are trying to steer conversations in a more, like, wanting, and like you can't blame them, I guess. I mean, I don't like the way some of these guys were doing it, but there were other guys that were, oh my god, I just it just gets annoying when I'm like trying to talk about something. Trying being the key word. So it wasn't all the guys. Initially, most of the guys that were coming on were like really just a bit much. But there were some guys where that one that was I guess a cello player, because she was like, oh, the cello is a wonderful instrument. And then they're talking about which music pieces they like. And she mentions one from Mozart that she's like, I could listen to that for hours. And he's like, oh, you know, it was written for his lover, and like, don't you think that you really feel that in the piece? And I feel like had she been maybe a few years older and more like in tune with more of an understanding of what love means to her and stuff like that, that could have been a beautiful conversation. But she's this young girl, you know, and so she's like, oh, mostly I just love the chord progressions or something like that. So it's just, you really start to realize that these girls are so naive and innocent as they're coming out into this world where suddenly these men are being thrust upon them. And I hate saying it that way, but you could really see it from Francesca's point of view over here, where it really did just sort of feel that way. When at that first dance, she was talking with Penelope and that man comes and asks her for a dance, and then you watch her dance with him, she looks so uncomfortable as he's standing behind her, like holding her arms. And I'm not saying that he was doing anything creepy or anything like that. From his point of view, he's dancing with a girl, he's keeping the proper distance and all of that kind of stuff. But from her point of view, this is the first time, or one of the first few times, that she's just being held so closely by a man. And I feel like up until now, most of like the movies or books and stuff that you read about this, it's a wanted touch, right? It was that sort of time period where that sort of touching rarely happened. It's why in Pride and Prejudice, when Mr. Darcy helps Elizabeth into the carriage, she looks down at the hands and like looks towards him, and he looks at her. Of course a plane is going over in this moment. Don't lose it, don't lose it, don't lose it, don't lose it. My thought process. I just don't want to lose my thought process. Anyway, that moment is so iconic, not just because as Mr. Darcy is walking away, Matthew does that hand stretch, and of course, like, ladies around the world just swooned in unison. But which actually was not in the script. It's something he did, and the director was like, we need a close up on that, which I thought was fantastic. But it really emphasizes that point that physical touch between a man and a woman were very singular to just dancing for the most part. And so him helping her into the carriage was this moment where he innocently touched her. And so in a time period of like that, and so Francesca's out here going into society, what I was trying to say before, sorry, is that in most of the romances that I've come across thus far, it was something that was excited for both parties. Like, they were looking forward to being able to have that moment to touch someone that they were interested in. But over here, it's a scared young girl who is having to go through all of this. She can't say no, and she now is like being handled by a man. And I could just see that as being traumatizing, really. And it like puts into perspective Eloise even more so, as well, as someone who like really just does not like, in a different light, I mean, she just doesn't like the confines of what women are just expected to be and especially because it's not something that she fits into at all. And so it's just, I don't know. I like watching this, you really do get annoyed with the elders in the community and that they puppeteer because Violet, tells Marcus, Lady Danbury's brother, about how Lady Danbury and her meddle in their young children's love lives, and that Lady Danbury really molds society, which she does, and it's something that is really fun to watch because she does really just puppeteer. Yeah, Lady Danbury really does just sort of puppeteer around, and she knows that the mothers are going a little insane because Queen Charlotte hasn't picked out a diamond, and she knows that Victoria is a little um, scared about Francesca coming out in society. She wants her to find love, but it seems like Francesca will just go with, whatever is just sort of good enough, and then like just to escape having to do all of this. And she's so scared about how things went with Eloise last season that she's very hands off this season with Eloise. So she's like juggling this tightrope. And Lady Danbury's like, hey, Francesca's a great girl. We just need her to shine a little bit so the queen can see her. And so she has Francesca go play the piano. And Francesca is thinking that, oh, I have this moment of reprieve. I can just calm down because she's like in this ball, in this situation with all these guys, and it's just overwhelming and too much for her. Yet it turns out Lady Danbury is setting up this whole thing so that Queen Charlotte can then come in, see this. She loves music, she loves talent, art, and all of that kind of stuff. So now Francesca is on Queen Charlotte's radar, which I still don't think she's been named the Diamond though. But anyway, so Queen Charlotte then invites this, I forget what he's a marquis, right? Anyway, this guy from Vienna, um, for them to be matched up. Which at first Francesca's like, oh no, it would be great to be matched up with someone by the queen because she would know better. But Victoria clocks her and like, is it that or it would be easier for you? So I don't want to completely be like, oh, the elders are doing a really bad job, because no, that's not the case. I see what they're doing and why they're doing it. I wish they involved the kids more and talked with them. For one, sex education, super important for many reasons, but also like just for a girl to be pre-warned as to what is about to come towards them as they come out in society, especially because these men are like men, so that would be nice. I just, I feel bad for Francesca, but I love John Sterling, that's his name. I love them. I think they are the sweetest, cutest, like just I understand Victoria's sort of hesitancy in not being able to fully understand because they don't talk with each other the first time he comes to me, but clearly there is an interest, there's an attraction between the two, and they vibe on the same level, and it's so lovely to see. So I hope Violet really comes around and comes to understanding that, because at the end of the episode she seemed happy when Francesca was clearly so happy at like getting this sheet music from him, that he had rearranged the song they heard earlier in the week. And so at first she's like happy to see her daughter so happy, but then you see her face just sort of go into worry, and I can't put my finger on why that is, because she spent the whole season up until then being like, it's okay if you don't choose the queen's choice, Daphne didn't, it's important to follow your heart and all of this kind of stuff. And so here her daughter is following her heart, but she seems unsure. Is it really just because they didn't meet formally? Like, that feels like not a good enough reason. So I guess we'll see in the second part. I don't know. So I guess that was a little bit of a mesh of the two. Really, the elders just seemed slightly different this season, or just maybe not. So at first in my notes I was writing down that they felt lukewarm and like they weren't as involved, but now as I was talking about Francesca, they are very involved. They're just not involved with the main couple. Like in season 1 and season 2, they were very involved in Simon and Daphne, in Anthony and Kate. Like they were both on both parts of the main couple. But here, the focus is all on Francesca, which I love her storyline, and I love watching all of that go down, but they're not as involved in the main couple. Not until Colin asks Violet about the whole, oh, friends, like friendship. That should be good for love, right? But like it's not until that Violet realizes this connection. Otherwise, she never did or said anything, and that also just feels strange that none of the elders noticed that Penelope was so in love with Colin. Like they clocked it on Anthony and Kate. Like they zeroed in on those two when they shared looks, but 2 seasons of Penelope and Colin looking at each other and nothing. So it's just like, that's why I'd written down that they felt so lukewarm, and it's really because they're not involved in the main couple at all. Okay, should we move on to Cressida? Cressida's redemption arc. Okay, here we go. So I feel like Cressida's redemption arc is too little too late. It's just, I wish that they started this or hinting towards this in the second season, because we've had 2 seasons now, count them, 1, 2, 2 seasons of Cressida being a straight up ice bitch and like so mean, so cold, so conniving and sneaky and all of the above. She's never been warm or kind in any sort of way. And now suddenly we're getting this backstory of, oh, well, it's her home life and the pressures that she has. Yeah, well, everyone has those pressures, and no one else is being like her. At least, not that we've seen. Like, she is the main face of that group of girls, I guess, where they just... So one of the earlier scenes where Cressida and Eloise were walking, and I think Eloise was, talking about her stepping on Penelope's dress and how that was unnecessary. So it's like, I had mentioned it in one of the recap videos towards the end with the commentary, where what's the need of doing something like that? If you view Penelope so low on the tier and not competition at all, why do moves like that? It's just like, she is unnecessarily a bully, and that's where it becomes so hard to not really accept this, because the actress that is playing Cressida, why? Oh my god, can I just get my thoughts out? Like, the longer this video goes, the more frustrated I get with every plane that goes overhead, which is so hard to explain because, again, I love planes. I love watching them go overhead. Sitting in my backyard, it's really nice sometimes, but oh my god, for filming, it is infuriating. There's just like so many little things that are irking me to no end. Okay, Cressida walking with Eloise and having the conversation about how, like it's so, I used to have friends when I was younger, but society is such a way that it pits us together and we become enemies and all of this kind of stuff, which of course is how Eloise viewed things And she's like, I actually tried to befriend you in your first season out, but you rejected me. And it's like, yeah, because you're Cressida. You've been mean to everybody and like vindictive and all of this kind of stuff. And seemingly, you're only coming up to her because she made the queen laugh. So you want to be surrounded by people you view as on your level or something like that. So yeah, she said, I would rather die, you know? And so when the news gets out and like everyone is gossiping about Penelope asking Colin for help, you know what I should start doing is having like a plain counter of how many times something is going overhead. Oh, I really hate how my hair looks. I've never been like this focused on my hair, really. When the news gets out and all the gossiping is happening about Penelope asking Colin to help her find a husband, and Penelope writes about it in Lady Whistledown, and so Eloise is reading that and she confronts Cressida. Cressida looks so hurt and is like, oh, like maybe you should look in a looking glass rather than looking at me and stuff. But I also thought it was Cressida because it tracks. Like the way we know her for 2 seasons now, it makes sense. And I get that in this season she is making efforts, I guess, to be a nicer person. Like she didn't spread that rumor and all of this kind of stuff. She's listening to Eloise when Eloise is like, there was no need to step on Penelope's dress. Like she's obviously making an effort, but that's not something we're just going to believe about you off the bat. You know, like that takes time for you to be able to make a change like that, because she was not nice at all. Real quick, Will and Alice Mondridge. I love them so much, and even through this season, I love them so much. It's not until the last episode where things are starting to not be as united as they usually are, and it's a little surprising, honestly, because they have worked so hard to build this club and the business that it is, and it was thriving, and suddenly, oh my god, I don't know why the lords care. Like, don't, I just while I was watching it, I was so annoyed because like I deal with it and coming from a close-knit Indian community too. It's like everyone is in everyone's fucking business and get lost. Like a lot of love and respect for everyone out there, honestly, but sometimes people want to be so nosy and make judgments about certain situations without knowing the full picture, and you're just like, why do you care? Even in society in general, I'll never understand why there's so much hate towards, since it's Pride Month, let's talk about it. I will never understand why there's so much hate towards like people of the LGBTQ plus community. I hope I said all the letters in the right order. I promise I'm an ally. Again, when I go into important conversations, there's gotta be something flying over, always. Okay, it's a little bit more distant now. So, I will never understand the hate towards people. You know, what does it matter to you? Seriously, it's so frustrating. I'm laughing because it's like, I've like had conversations about it before. I just don't, it does not compute. It really doesn't. It doesn't make sense in my head. I don't understand why people care. You know, like it doesn't affect your life. Why do you care? It does not actually affect you as a person. Why do you care if two people of the same gender or like whatever? Just leave people alone. As long as nobody is hurting anyone and it is all consensual, that is all I care about. Be happy. Oh my god, I don't like, I just, racism, another thing. I'm not gonna understand that. How can you hate someone based off of the color of their skin? That doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. I don't know why I'm talking about this right now. What were we talking about? It's always an important like subject to talk about. So that's not what I meant by why am I talking about it right now. What was I talking about that led to this? Will and Alice. And how the lords don't want Will to be working. As someone who always, who already just goes off on tangents, the planes just really don't help with that because I lose my train of thought always. Or it's just really hard to get that momentum again. So, with Will having his business and all the like apparently 2/3 of the lords have canceled their accounts. They're that upset that on his off time he spends time in his bar, which he owns. Like, I made a point of talking about that in one of the recap commentary videos. He owns this club. It's not that he works there as a server, it's his club. And it was popping at the beginning of the season. So you really are just like, why do you care? What does it matter to you? He's still going to all the events, the like absorbent amount of events. He's going to them. So it really is just like, what is the problem? I don't understand. But it is a little disheartening to see that Alice is not united with him on wanting to keep the bar. And it was a little shocking at first, but like now that I've watched it recently again, I did pick up on earlier, um it was before she started wearing dresses more suited to her. She was wearing Lady Kent's old clothes that she got altered to fit her. And she voices out to him that she's scared that they'll take it away if they do one little thing wrong. So I think that explains a little bit more of why she's not united with him on this. She, like, can you imagine this happening to your family? I mean, she made a point of talking about how everything that they have gotten so far, they worked so hard to obtain, and this was like a freak accident that her aunt passes away and there are no other male relatives other than her son. And so Lady Kent leaves a title and all that comes with it to them. And I can't imagine that suddenly happening. Like, your life completely alters. And so it would feel like this fragile thing that, oh my god, if I make one little wrong move, like, just as easily as it was given to me, it could just as easily be taken away, you know? So I kind of understand now in watching it again why she's more so like leaning towards he should give up the bar, but it's a little sad to see. I feel like up until now we've always seen them very united in how they think things through. Not to say they're always on the same page, like when that in the second season when Lord Featherington was talking to Colin in his bar and he's standing there brooding, Will is from the bar watching them, and Alice is like, mind your business, Will, and by your business I do mean your business, you know. um and he can't help himself. He still goes over and he, you know, calls Lord Featherington out as much as he can in that moment to Colin, which apparently was enough, but that's something I've already talked about. So, you know, it's just like, so I don't want to say that they are always on the same page, but for the most part they always felt very united, and it's a little surprising now to see that like Will doesn't want to give up on this business. He's really worked so hard to build it, and it's a dumb reason. It's so stupid. Okay, well, it's been nearly an hour and a half of me sitting over here, and granted, a good half an hour of that was probably in silence because of planes or garden work or what have you. So there's also that, but this is going to be so interesting to edit. I had an idea of how this was going to go, similarly to the video I did leading up to the release of the part one, which that one literally got uploaded the day before. I'm really hoping I can get this up tonight. We'll see if I manage to do that, because yeah, I yeah, I'll try. I'll make every best effort. So I think that I covered everything I wanted to cover. Thank you for your patience through whatever happened in this video. It was a little all over the place, and a lot of things were quite frustrating, and I'm sorry that the way certain lines will be delivered, depending on how it's edited, I don't know if you'll really know, like, you know, the happenings leading up to the emotions. So anyway, I really do want to, like, I appreciate anyone who has made it this far, and thank you so much for watching. And what are your thoughts in this part one of Bridgerton season 3? I think overall, especially after a couple of watches, I do like it. I just clearly have a few gripes, and trying to keep in mind that it is still just the first half of the season, and there's a whole second half that's coming out in a couple of days, and I'm so excited to watch it. But it is still like, that's half a season, and some of these things, it just, if it's going to change in the second part, I wonder why we're waiting until the second part for that to happen. But maybe things need to marinate a little. But I'm curious to hear how you're liking the season so far, but please no spoilers about what's going to happen or what could happen because of the books, because I haven't read them. But I'm really enjoying watching the show, and I can't wait for Thursday. I'm gonna have to do a similar thing that I did before. Actually, I don't know if I'll be watching Thursday. I kind of hope I can, but it really depends on work and what I can swing, and we'll see. But like, trying to avoid spoilers, I will forget and just open Instagram and poof, there it is. So it happened almost all the time with The Bachelor and Bachelorette, because I watch on Hulu, so for me it's a day later, and I'll just forget, and that morning I'll go on Instagram and be like, oh, that's who he ends up with. Okay, great. And then I have to go watch it, you know, which darn. But anyway, I'm now turning delusional because I've just been rambling. Thanks for putting up with me, and I hope to see you next time. Toodles.